Hello, class. Today, we're going to pick up where we left off. Last time, our video covered, I believe it was input with the scanner. Today, we're going to talk about input again, but using the JOptionPane. Now, if you remember, we did print statements, and then we did JOptionPane pop-ups. It's kind of the same thing. We're using the JOptionPane to save our input. So a pop-up box is going to pop up, and we type into it, and that's how we're going to tell the program what information we want to tell it. Now, to start this off, what you need to do is go ahead and make a project. In fact, I've already done so. I would put the date, whatever today's date happens to be first, but entirely up to you, and mark your braces with little comments. Trust me again, that will help tremendously later on. Now, first off, just like with the JOptionPane, we have to import stuff for this. So I have to import javax.swing.j option pane, capital J, capital O, capital P. And once we've done that, we can use the option pane for whatever we want. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask for some input, and then I'm going to print it off using the pop-up box like we did last time. Or like we did originally, I should say, for our first output. So JOptionPane dot. Now, as soon as I hit JOptionPane dot, I've got a lot of things I can pick from. Show message dialog is what we used before. This is what we use to just print messages on the screen. Show input dialog is what we're going to want for this. And just like the show message dialog, there are several different versions of this where I can set the title, I can set message type, and other things. I'm just going to pick the first one, just like this. And whatever message you want goes in parentheses. What is your name? Now, there's one problem with what I've done so far here. If I run this pop-up box, and I can change the icon, put a title up there if I wanted to add more stuff. I hit my name, I hit OK, and nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is because I'm not saving this anywhere. Whenever we use this option, I have to have a variable to store it. So if you remember with the scanner, I think it was here, or actually one more over. There we go, intro scanner. I had an output, and then I had a name, and the input was this line here. Now, with what we're making this time, though, get over there, there we go. We're using the option pane for our input. So the line's a little different, but it does exactly the same thing. Now, this is where it differs. The JOptionPane, whatever I type in, is going to get stored here. Now, I'm typing in my name, so it's going to go into this string variable here. If I want to display it, then, yeah, JOptionPane dot show message dialog, and I'm just going to pick the first option, and then it's going to be null, and your name is, or better yet, hello plus name. I'm just going to add a little bit more to it. That's a weird name. So if I run this, doot, I get my pop-up box. What is your name? Bob. I hit OK again, and I get another pop-up. Hello, Bob. That's a weird name. So now I can use these pop-up boxes to store information, to display it back. It's just simply, if you notice, I have to have these little pluses on either side. As we talked about before, whenever you print anything that's a string, you have the quotes around it. If you want to print a variable, you have to have this little plus here. Now, if I didn't want to add any of this other stuff here, then I would get rid of this other plus. I would just, for example, just back that up. The other plus is only there because, well, I'm adding more stuff. If I don't have that plus, you end up getting, parentheses expected. Now, there isn't a problem with parentheses here. The problem is a plus. So the errors aren't always perfect. They don't always tell you specifically what you have to do. But if you see them enough, you kind of get the idea of what the problem is, especially if it's a statement like this. Now, the first portion of this is pretty easy because we're just dealing with the string. Now, what if I want to have an age or money or numbers or anything like that? Then it gets a little more difficult. And this is one of the reasons I don't use the JOptionPane as much. I use the scanner, but uh, everything that this show input dialog takes in is always a string. So for example, let's say I want to ask for someone's age. String age equals, now I'm just going to call this age s for age string, equals JOptionPane. Now I could type this in. I could come up here and just copy and paste. Copy and paste can save you a ton of time if you know what you're doing. If I copy and paste incorrectly, I may end up, with a bunch of broken lines. All right, so what is your age? Now, everything the JOptionPane takes in is always a string. That means I can't make this an int. I can't come over here and just say int, and you'll see, oh, well, incompatible type, string cannot be converted to int. So there's a couple of things I can do to get around this. One, and the major thing you have to do pretty much no matter what, is convert it. Java can actually convert a string to an integer if it is an integer, or a double, or some other numeric value, float. So here's basically what happens. I type in, let's say, 20, and 20 gets stored in here. Now, 20, in quotes, that is not a number. If I add 20 in quotes plus 20 in quotes, I'm going to get 2020. If I add them a character at a time, I get something completely different. Now, I have to convert this to a number. So to convert it is pretty much the lines I'm about to write here. So just pay close attention. So int age equals integer dot parse int. Now notice I've got this here. I'm just going to click that. And it should fill in age s. If it doesn't, you can write it in. And what this is going to do, and then I can just JOptionPane again. Just copy that. Control C, Control V. Instead of hello, I'll just erase that and just, you are blank years old. Age plus years old. Now, if I was just printing something like this, it really wouldn't matter if it was a string or an int. But typically, if it's a number, we want it to be numeric. If I have to, ask how much are you paying, and I have to do some math on it, I'm going to have to convert it. So I'm just converting it here to show you. This doesn't necessarily have to be a number, but let's say I was storing this in a database. Then, every year I'd want to increase the age by a year, right? On your birth date. Well, if it's a string, I can't do that as easily. So let's take a look. We'll get our name first. Hello, Bubba. Oop, and it moved me for some odd reason. That's weird. All right. What is your age? Let's say 20. you were 20 years old. Now there is an issue with doing this here. You know, my name could be 123 12234, and that's fine. It's going to be a string. But if I go to age and type in Bob, now this line will run because it's a string. This line, number 20, well, is Bob a number? No, it's not. In fact, you'll see it says on line 20 there's a problem. So basically, I tried to convert a string into a number. It didn't like it. You can convert characters into numbers, but not really strings. So that's one of the ways this can crash on you. You kind of have to assume that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing unless you know how to check. Now, I mentioned before that there is actually another way to do this. So I assume you all would like to know what that is. So let me show you one other way that's a little less, instead of doing 2 lines of this, I can do 1 line. So let me just go ahead and do this copy, paste, and instead of age, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this int number. And I'm just going to say type in a number. Let's see if I can do this. I've actually never done this before, but I'm pretty sure this should work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go integer.parse int. Now I'm just going to put a parentheses around this here. So, and we'll just JOptionPane it again. Copy, paste, or you can pause and type. You typed number, and I'll just erase everything else. There. So I can do the same thing that I did with these 2 lines, just do it in 1 here, and it'll work the same. So let's give a little check. What's your name? What's your age? Type in a number. Ta-da. So it really doesn't matter which of these you pick. If you like to do it in steps, that's fine. If you just like to copy and paste and not have the 2 different things here, you could do it this way if you prefer. This right here is going to come back with the string, and then it will parse and convert it to a number. Then it's going to plug it into this variable, whatever that variable happens to be. And these variables could be named anything I want, as long as it's an allowed name. So this is your JOptionPane. This is how we convert. Now, if I wanted a double instead of an integer, well, I can do, let me just show you, why are you going up there? Stop that. Double dot parse double. Notice that that's there. And I'm just going to comment that out. If I wanted a double. And I believe float dot parse float, or capital F, float dot parse float would be for a float. If I was trying to get a float out of it. So those would be your kind of conversions if you wanted to convert, a JOptionPane to a number. Now, whichever you prefer to use in your programming assignments, it can be either or. It doesn't really matter. If you prefer the JOptionPane because it looks nicer, use it. Just know you'll have to do this little bit of extra for that. The import at the top, which you do have to do for the scanner as well. And then you'll have to do this for user input. This to display it on the screen. These are majorly the 2 lines you're going to be using. Now I should also mention you can, in this show message dialog, just display a string if you wanted to. Like I had string type in your name, and I just, instead of putting this, what is your name, I could just put that variable there, and it would display it on the screen. There's a couple of ways you can kind of tinker with this if you want. Play around with it, see what you think. Try a couple of different things. Try doing a double. Try doing a float. Uh, so copy paste, add that, and that'll be your next thing you need to work on. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask.